Sachin. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So, uh, Monopriya
Um,
and Janvi, can I start?
so before we
Yeah,
start,
yeah.
just a few rules and that must be followed.
Yes,
So,
yes. So,
dear participants, to avoid inconvenience for all of us, I request all of you to keep your mics and video switched off throughout the presentation. Participants can use the chat box to ask questions, and these will be addressed in the Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. Kindly refrain from using offensive language in the chat box. Thank you. Now I'll hand over to you, Satish.
yeah. So, firstly, thank you very much to Loki sir and Vijayashri ma'am for the opportunity, and to the event coordinating professors Dileepan and Pooja Kataria, and to the student moderators Monopriya and Janvi Ravi. It's been, I mean, it's having a lot, having a lot of nostalgic moments of coming back to the same school and to see how the school is sort of scaled from a one single batch where we started, and now to sort of be its of own institution, part of the university, and the school having other programs apart from just bachelor's of architecture. It's very great, and I'm glad you guys are. I mean, beyond these difficult times, you guys are able to push through online event for the hashtag, and that's great. And so, moving further, I don't want to take much time. Let's start with today's presentation. I should share my screen. I hope my screen's visible and I'm audible. Can
Yes, sir, you are.
Yes, okay. So, speculative urbanism. It's just, I mean, before getting into the topic, I mean, today's presentation, I've sort of structured it in a way. I'm going to be showing you guys different projects and how these are all sort of laced into together by its speculative thoughts, and how those thoughts sort of manifest the urbanism component of the project. So, to give you guys more of a context, and to sort of travel with me, I've started with a project that we did, part of Triple O Studio in Chennai, for Chennai, under the hyperbolic cities tag. So what we sort of did is, we sort of wanted to do a reverse approach for any urban project. Any urban project, yes, it involves a lot of study and to sort of come up with a program and to factor in all economical standards and reasoning and bureaucracy and a lot of other things, right up to what the proposal actually is itself. But here, what we sort of wanted to do is sort of a reverse approach, where we started to pick up different spots of the city. We just picked up pictures and we started to just come up with proposals, and these were not just locations with any random choice, but they were all wasted infrastructure in the city. I guess everybody knows the MRTS system, which was certainly designed, more designed for to sort of host other programs apart from the MRTS network itself. But I mean, due to various reasons, things didn't happen. But what we thought was sort of, how do we add? There's been, I mean, this is the multi super specialty hospital location at Mount Road, and how and it has a certain strong structure for the MRTS itself. What we were thinking was, what if we add a non-motorized system of network at different point of MRTS locations that would, that would add an urban space to it, apart from just being the structure itself. Is my screen visible? I just want to confirm.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, so we just started with images, and we started to propose images. By non-motorized transport, I mean we sort of added bike lanes and walkways and connecting spaces for people's easy use and access. And these were, the proposal itself was sort of, I mean, was just a quick snapshot to sort of, stir the dialogue of what these spaces could actually become. We did not intend to sort of go through the whole process and in a very detailed format, but we wanted to start, kickstart a conversation with anybody who would come aboard with us and, sort of really make that project real. So that's how we started this. And this is again NIF campus at OMR Salai. We were sort of adding another walkway with it, and then the Chepauk Stadium location and how this would become this kind of a space. So we were just trying to simply activate the spaces, and that's how that was our thought process to it. And another side of the Chepauk Stadium and what it could be. And again, Broken Bridge, a very photogenic spot in the city. And what if we just reconnect Broken Bridge to the other part of the city, and then that sort of activates that area as well, which is majoritarily neglected because of various reasons, but what could it be, and how it could become a complete non-motorized system of connection between the city. And the same spot with the night view. And this is again the super specialty hospital, and the public plaza of it for what it was intended to be a public plaza, but I don't think it's serving yet till date. But so what it could be, we were just trying to do very simple notions, just making those staircases seatable and sort of connecting a simple bridge connection, and how that public plaza could have a central area of commercial use or any format to sort of activate the space. And that was our only intention. So, Chennai by itself lacks a lot of urban spaces in comparison to a lot of other cities. Moving on. And definitely, yes, we got a lot of media attention. And moving on. So this was just a thought process of what these spaces could be, and what if we just accelerate this whole thought process to future. This kind of thought process, the same, picking up just images and then what could it be? So that was the whole idea. And then how do we accelerate it through the future and say, let's say travel 30 to 40 years across. In terms of site context, now we are dealing with Manhattan, part of New York. What if we convert Manhattan carless? There's been a lot of momentum for cities to become car-free, and a lot of European cities are starting to make their core centers car-free. And then what if we just start, so this was just an idea to see, what if we just convert the whole island car-free? Yes, it is a little, eccentric, or it can be so it's just an idea to test and see what kind of results we would be yielding. And that was the whole process of the study. And we carried a small exercise again. Similarly, what I started to do is just picking up images of different spots of the city and what it could be. And so looking at a map scale, what if we just pull off the streets, and then now there's a new canvas for us to operate. All the street space is just for us to see. Removing car-free in the sense, yes, public transport component still exists, and there'll be a lot more new additions of public transport, but what happens to the street surface? So that is a large canvas in terms of area ratio when you calculate a city or an island. And and Manhattan being completely a gridded city, it's a complete gridlocked pattern. And so again, zooming in a little bit into scale, what if these city blocks, what would it convert to be? A capitalistic notion, a city like New York, what would they kind of react? And will they build buildings on the streets, or will they, organically connect them with green spaces, or what could be the question? So we were just testing images, a series of just a short exercise of just seeing what these city blocks could turn out to be. And this is another part of the city block again. And so this image is at Central Park. The bottom corner is where you see is the entrance to the park. And what if, and on the top is a complete billionaire row area. And what if the billionaire row sort of builds buildings onto the streets, and then the park sort of explodes and just rolls out into the streets as well? So what could be the kind of reaction to this kind of a scenario? And so this is one of the streets in Soho. What if, so here, the history behind the street was there was a kennel running in the street originally, and they actually had to bury the kennel, and it's no more there. And what if we just reopen the kennel and we have a nice urban spot in the city? And then coming to Times Square, a very heavily populated area, what if that also has a built reaction to it? Yes, most of you all must be familiar with all the building morphing that I've been doing onto these images, but these are just quick notions to sort of test and see what could be the reactions. And another part of the city street where what if we just come up with what if buildings prop up in the middle? And then what if a simple road street becomes again a public spot? And then what if a heavily activated public street already sort of extends itself to be more an plaza kind of a scenario? So this was just an exercise. So far what we saw was just an exercise to see what could be the reaction kind of a thing. But what if we just accelerate much more further into the future, into an apocalyptic scenario? What happens? Apocalyptic, I mean to say, if a condition of a space, or a land mass that sort of becomes unlivable conditions. So what happens? So here I'm also talking about Anthropocene. Anthropocene is, to simply put Anthropocene, it is something because of, any human intervention that is just scaled up into a great scale where you compare it with a large portion of the earth as being more, I would not say devastated or depleting, but more on a negative sense. It sort of affects a large piece of the earth's creation and how the infrastructure sort of changes the aesthetics of how Earth is. And so this is actually what Anthropocene would look like. Looks like. We mine so much of area on the Earth's surface. There is so much of explosion of oil fields. And on the right-hand side, you're seeing greenhouses, a complete plastic wrapped greenhouse structures in Spain, and salt pans. The left image is from Utah and the right image from Rann of Kutch, India. So how infrastructure sort of just changes the whole face of the earth, like how there's been poisoning of water bodies from chemical industries, or the Palikarnai marshland, for example, like such a large area just because of human intervention, how it is completely changed into something else. On a very larger scale, not just Palikarnai marshland I'm talking about, but something on a very larger scale. So that is what Anthropocene is. And this machine, it's a mining machine. So, if you look at the right side of the image, you can see a small human right next to it. You can see the scale of it. Like, this is one of the largest human-designed infrastructure machine that sort of changes the whole, it really grades the Earth landmass, and so this image to me is what Anthropocene is like. And so coming to a site context, so far we spoke about Anthropocene. We'll see later part of the presentation how Anthropocene plays out. But on a site context, this is again in New York, and on the top left you're seeing Manhattan, the tip of Manhattan's Island, and the major portion that you're seeing is Brooklyn. So the existing coastline on the left is what it is now, but during Hurricane Sandy, there was a storm surge, and then a very big portion of Brooklyn was completely flooded. This was 10 times larger than the Chennai floods in comparison, because so what really happened is this is one of the largest floods even New York has seen so far in the history. This completely halted the whole system of infrastructure, from electricity to transit to everything. It was completely devastated, and it took a lot of time for them to recover from this. So, the small canal you're seeing is called the Gowanus Canal, and then the complete portion that is submerged on, I'm talking about the right image, the Gowanus Canal, and then the submerged portion is Red Hook. And so what if, with relating to our Anthropocenic scenario, what if this sort of this area becomes an unlivable condition for the future? I'm already setting the scenario in probably, say, 70 years from now, or 8 years from now. So what could be the usability of this land? What could we do with this land? So what if infrastructure comes into play into the city, which plugs in with part of the city? So what we did is I picked up the Bagger 288, and what you're seeing, a graphical image on the right, is algae farms. So the landform sort of degrades, and it becomes more like a marshy land area, and Red Hook sort of just goes under the water, let's say. So how these infrastructures could sort of amorphically, change the landscape of that area. And so what you're seeing is a physical model of what the proposal is. And if you see the model, there is an arterial road connection splitting it into two sides. And one side, what if these bagger machines sort of create this very new landscape, landform, which would also prevent it from flooding, and at the same time, that is a new fabric space for humankind to sort of go and occupy. It works very differently in terms of its aesthetical quality. And what if the other side, the Gowanus Canal part of it, sort of becomes these acidic landscape of algae, and how those algae could be, converted into biofuel. And it's a simple infrastructure which sort of just scaled up in a large area. So these are more images of the model. The green pipes that you're seeing are algae towers that sort of converted into biofuel. And so, as an objectified sense, we were looking at this proposal more at an artistic and aesthetical level. So we were just coming up with a simple idea of a model and a few images along with it, how it could look. But right now, I want to dwell more on the speculative thought process. So this is again a graphical image, and just for you to connect with the context. So this has been about post-apocalyptic scenario. But what if, I'm sure at this point, a lot of you could have had this question. Okay, these are all just snapshot ideas, a quick thought process of what these things could be. But what if we start designing for the future? What if our inspirations or lookouts have also always been about graphical work, say Archigram or anything. They're all just been graphical thought process for the future, like walking city and things like that. But what if we start designing and on a more realistic scale for say certain 40 to 50 years from now, what things could change, and what if we design buildings or infrastructure for that matter. And infrastructure in a larger sense, on an urban context, it's always been neglected part in largely. But what if we start to design our infrastructure? That was actually a very large bracket premise that we always experimented with. And so this is street infill. So again, coming back to the car-free Manhattan initiative, what if Manhattan Island becomes car-free? So if you see, just apart from the front tip of Manhattan, the whole of the city is just a grid, and they just go by the street names, and the addresses go by the blocks. So there are complete. I mean, in the longest direction, there are 10 avenues, and then in the shorter direction, there are more than 150 streets. So that's how they name it itself. And so what could be, so we have a new blank canvas, and what could the space be used for? So let's just stay there at the moment. And America, in its own culture, shopping or these big box shopping centers have always been part of their culture. Like, any store for that matter, apart from a very small scale retail, of course, they're there all through Manhattan, but a majority of portion of the users sort of divert towards these big box stores, which are, in a lot of sense, like people with a low income group to middle income group, anybody sort of directs towards these big box stores, and these big box stores have been the key drivers of the shopping industry. And this is an infrastructure that is, an infrastructural piece. I mean, something of this scale should really be treated as an infrastructure, where a group of these big box stores sort of become malls, and those are the malls that they call themselves big. I mean, for them, malls are not on a human scale, in my opinion. So our premise was what would these malls function like? How would people access to these malls when we take the cars off the street? Because majority of the malls are located outside the Manhattan Island. So how would people access this? What if we just go forward this question and see what kind of solutions we would see. So I sort of picked up a street around a residential area, and what if we just bring all these stores into the street, and how would people use the building? So what I was looking at is, it's a crazy idea, but definitely could be possible considering the current times we are living in. So in the future, what if we just drop a 3-kilometer wide building, which is 7 meters in width, in middle of the street, and how this could function as these big box stores for the residential area around. And so what we're going to see right now is, as I told you, on the longer direction, they split into avenues. We're just going to cut sections across each avenues and see what could be the aesthetical quality, and how does the building sort of react with the urban connection with the street. So this is just a map from the future. Let's say Manhattan is flooded, and we have our building right in the center, and then all the streets have sort of had built infrastructure, and the greenery is exploded. So this could be a map condition in a Google Map condition in the future. And so in the first avenue, as I told you, what if it's flooded in the bottom, and then this is how the perspective could be. And so to logically aid the building, we actually have a robotic transport system at the bottom that sort of connects to the other parts of the city. So across the island, there's rivers on both sides, and then it connects to the rest, the other parts of the city. And what if this connects to the other part of the city underground, and then that could be the feeder of goods into the whole building, and then these are just robotically managed and then sent to the retail space above. So this image sort of shows how the system, I mean, the building logically could be a functional piece between the street while creating more urban space on the sides. And what if this, I mean, the building sort of, carves and opens itself for the art district to just flood into the space, and that becomes an attractive space by itself. And what if in this part of the building you sort of see the linear quality of the building, where you are just directed in a certain, I mean, the store layout is completely scaled to a different format, and how you access these buildings, it's a complete linear environment. What kind of environment it could be. And this is another location where it sort of connects the metro and the entry scenario and what could be. And apart from this, we also had, to add more to the greenery interest, we sort of put up I sort of put up a park on top of the building as well. And what if Highline, the existing urban top line of the street, a railway infrastructure converted into an urban park, what sort of folds between the building itself and then connects to the top part. So these are just what could be the scenario of it, and how would it sort of blend with the city, the street level fabric of the city, and what could be the kind of aesthetical quality that it could achieve is what the question was. And again, as I told you, now we're looking at perpendicular sections of the street. So we saw through the avenues, and now we're looking to perpendicular to the street. So what, as I told you, the flooded kind of a scenario. And then what if another avenue, people decide to just build buildings in front of our building, and then there could be this kind of a scenario with running tracks, and then the art district, how it would connect with the building. And so this is on the right hand side of the image, you'll see a park that's an existing park. In the left, it's an office building. What if the park just extends itself, and the office building, people could sort of use the space? And what if in a more of a shopping kind of a scenario with light rail and connectivity, what kind of aesthetics it could be? In a very residential neighborhood, how it could be a publicly activated space. So this was, these were just thought process of what if this kind of scenario. It could be anything, but we were just trying to see what kind of aesthetics it would create, and what it could, kickstart a conversations of what things could be the future like. Because right now I think everybody would agree with me with this time. So we really sort of need to be prepared for our future and accept any kind of a situation, and how do we react with it. So that's the thought process that we always strive to be. And this is just a pan image of different sections of the avenues. You see how the building connects itself. And this is another project where we're talking about data centers. A lot of the technological companies are now moving towards hosting their data centers underwater to sort of cool the unit, because they require so much of electricity and, again, space and cooling mechanism, and it needs a lot of infrastructure. So we thought, what if we could design this for the future? What would it look like, and what kind of aesthetical quality will it create, and how will the urban interaction be? So we sort of, this scenario could be in any city. We again picked up New York as a scenario, and what would be the underwater quality be, and So this is just a cross section where you could see a spillover space for water that just diverts itself out again, and then there is the data structure below. These are all data cells, and at the same time, the water besides it sort of helps cooling it. And the central connection pipe that you're seeing, it could be an underground tunnel that just passes through it, which sort of gives you this kind of an interior quality into the space. So we were just trying to see how we could design for the future, like what kind of interesting aesthetics that we could create in terms how the infrastructure could be for the future. And yes, everybody would agree that interest towards drones have started to grow multifold, and not just for domestic use, but also for delivery purposes and in a lot of other ways. But these two ideas, we sort of thought that has picked up a lot of momentum in terms of making it real. And it's coming, like it's very soon coming. But how do we prepare for the future? So there's obviously going to be a lot of drone traffic. So how do we react to this? So we sort of created a manual that would sort of have a zoning restriction in terms of height. I mean, there are already countries and cities doing that, but we did this for a specific purpose that we would see in the later part of the presentation. At what heights and speeds and it could travel, and these good carrier drones, what it could do. The image you're sort of seeing right now is just a snapshot from how it would look on a zoning manual itself. So this was also very key for our presentations, where we always try to create samples from the future, like how a manual would look like, or how a poster on the metro network would look like. So things like that. So this proposal, what we were trying to see is how we could use the existing metro infrastructure, where they could have these ultra-speed goods carrier devices that would travel within the city to connecting different parts of the city. And we could just have few drone towers in certain blocks and neighborhoods and areas where the goods could be fed into the tower, and then from the tower the drone picks it up and delivers to the micro fabric. So that's how we sort of envision this. And the image and the poster that you're seeing are, so there's the graphic look to how it would be a proof from the future kind of a situation. And these were just images that we create. What it would look like in real as a manufacturing device itself. So this was also a very key thing during our presentations in our master program. So this is Times Square. And what if we just change Times Square? The Times Square LED structure itself could be a drone tower, and then drones could deliver. So this was just a very accelerated thought of the kind of busy drone traffic that you're seeing. But they look more like, so they have a shell structure with them, and then they carry the goods in the shell structure, and that was the thought process to it. And what if the frontal structure, it sort of becomes an LED screen, or not just an LED screen, it also sort of directs the drones as a feeder into the building. They sort of have a code mechanism to sort of the drones scan, and then they go through the building, and then they pick up the package, and then they leave. So what would be the kind of aesthetics? And one more thing that that was key during our presentations was not just to create renders for the project or how it would like. We always did did imageries that would, what if this image could be part of somebody's Instagram feed, or what would be the human's reaction to it? And this building sort of lives in the background, and what would be that kind of future like? So that was very key for us. And these are again more images that you're seeing from different parts of the city. It does not have to be Times Square itself. It can be in different parts of the city as different functions. So that was the thought process to that. And yeah, so we are almost to the, and we're to the end of our presentation. I mean, the whole process of speculating has always been, to prepare for the future. Like, I mean, not just speculating these thought processes just to prepare for the future. This has actually also changed a lot of things in me in terms of how do we react to a design, because I mean, this sort of frees you up in terms of experimenting different kinds of solutions, right from any house design to an interior space or anything that you design. You always want to look at a third angle to it, and what could be that experimental angle. So we always sort of I mean, that sort of drives in you, and that's what it has actually done to me during all these projects. So my best suggestion would be is to speculate more with your ideas and solutions and sort of start preparing for the future. And I think no better time than this has, and dawned us to it has completely changed a system for us in terms of our education, to how we work, how we live, and things like that. So, it is very, very essential to be prepared for the future, and how quick we are prepared for the future also matters. So anything could happen, and what kind of scenario plays out, and how would we be a part of it is very important. So the whole process of these presentations and work has been about how do we kickstart some sort of a conversation. So because anything infrastructural or urban scale is not just, it involves so much of human resources and interventions to it, and thought process to it, and additional ideas. So these have always been like, to start the conversation and get the ball rolling and see what we could really come up with. And that's how it has been for us. So yeah, that's to the end of the presentation. If you guys have any questions, we can go further, and I'm going to stop sharing my presentation. I also hope everybody was connected to the presentation and there was no functioning issues or screen sharing issues. So,
no, so we didn't face any issues. It was perfectly all right.
okay. And, was my video not visible all through the time?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, I think I was clear.
Thank you, Sabrish. That was an insightful session, and I'm sure each and every one of us have had so much to learn from it. And speaking about learning, we learn only when our minds are curious. And having said that, we're now open for a question and answer session. So shall we proceed, sir? There are a few questions raised by our participants, and Architect Ravi sir has posted, hello Satish, as you know well, the holistic configuration of living beings and earth are rather the same, like 70% fluid and 30% solid. Very coastline and landforms are there for specific ecological balance. Tampering with existing urban deterioration and expanding the same in the essential water bodies could only be the spreading capital, so to say. Why do you think about reverse migration and major population toward work from home situations?
Yeah, so as I hi Ravi sir. So as I told you, this is just to see if we are prepared for this kind of scenario. It does not have to be this at all, like completely not this at all. But it was just a test exercise of if this could be possible. There could be multiples of possibilities, But right now, I mean, there are so many different ways of using resources. But why did we choose to mine, and why did we sort of design these kind of infrastructural pieces? Like, these were just human reactions, and what if they so this was just an accelerated thought. If we just continue the same notion, what if we would just put these infrastructures in place, and then what would that be? It does not have to be a human occupation also. So that was just just to see what it could be. I mean, so there could be multiple possibilities, but it was just a test process to see if this could happen, or because if this happens, how much of even more damage that we are creating. So that is what the exercise is about. I think I have answered the question, or yeah.
Okay. Moving on to questions from Shankari. What steps as architects or urban planners can we take to avoid a conversion of water bodies into primary residential area by the government to avoid an ecological loss to a particular neighborhood, for example, Velachery?
I mean, the damage is already done. And we've had very different planners who had a very different approach towards an ecological space. But I mean, needless to say, it is that our first duty would be to sort of not do it, at least from here on. Like, it needs a complete infuse of young and fresh minds who sort of are very sensitive towards this into our Chennai system itself. Like, I have friends who are now working into the PWD, right from graduated from SAP. They are sort of trying to bring in more new kind of direction. Like, it has just been an old thought that has, like again said, connecting with the previous question, like we thought, okay, this could be one person comes up with this infrastructural idea. Okay, let's expand and the city over a marshland. And that has helped in other ways and a lot of economical benefits. So they just decide to just forego, but only now is when they're realizing. So that is where it really helps for us to sort of test and see if our solutions are right. I mean, so what would it, so it needs a lot of, a lot of thought process and inputs from all discourses to sort of test and see if our decisions are right. So that is why preparing for the future is very important, in my opinion. So.
Okay, so there are many questions that's lined up.
Sorry, just a minute more.
Sure.
I'm very sure, yes, there would be a lot of questions. So the whole process of this exercise, why I chose to talk about speculative urbanism itself is sort of, I really want to get the ball rolling. I mean, a lot of us could get together and, come up with different proposals for right from Chennai, for that matter itself, to think on a very speculative note, like what could be what and how do we change this? So that is very important in terms of, as architects and urban planners and urban designers, we need to be very responsible with the kind of decisions we make, and we need to be very learned for the situations. And so that is what our responsibility is. So the whole idea of this presentation, or what my work has been about, is just to test and try different kind of solution, and there are endless possibilities to it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And I also thank all the participants for the enthusiasm. As we're running out of time, we will get back with the answers from the speaker, and the same will be posted on SEED social media handles. Now I request the HOD, Professor Ashok Kumar sir, to say a few words.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure, Architect Sabresh, to have you in our forum. Really, it's wonderful. As an alumni, it is a really reconnect to our, of course, your juniors. our students to it's a really reconnect.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah, pleasure is mine. It's I mean it's definitely been a great experience and it's sort of
The topic also speculative urbanism. See, every walks of life experience the urbanism. Of course, we are architects. Definitely intend to speculate both the environment and the open spaces as well. So, no, your thoughts and experiments and exercises and no, that thought process really that will help our students. Especially who are doing third year and fourth year urban design people. No, they will think out of the box and think explore things and no, really these are the no. It's really thinking out of the box how the urban open spaces can be utilized or thought of, even the drone thing and all, really, it is really wonderful thought and then really it's help our students. It's a wonderful talk and inspiring talk to Sabrish. On behalf of SRM Ramapuram Management, SRM Seed, on behalf of faculty, students, thank you. Thank you for having you today. It's a really reconnect. Hope our students inspire your speech and hope you get you well. Once this COVID situation is over, I hope when you come down to India, we will physically have you. It will be very, very, very inspiring. Yes,
yeah. Nice knowing you, sir.
I'm Professor Ashok. I joined 9 months back. Yeah, so it's a wonderful talk. As Professor Lokesh was telling, this batch is very wonderful batch, and all people are exploring many things in different walks. It's great to have you today.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. This pleasure is mine. Yes, I mean we were the first batch to the school. We were trying to really work towards having.
For your information, I'm first batch in KTR.
Oh, okay. That's amazing. That's great. Yeah,
it's wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Sabrish. We are so glad you could make it today. And we also thank you on behalf of all the members of SEED once again. We would like to thank our convener, Architect Lokesh sir, for his constant support and guidance. And again, our respective co-winners, Sir Professor M. Ashok Kumar sir, for this opportunity. Our extremely supportive faculty for being there with us. And a huge thanks for our technical team. A link has been posted in the chat box with a feedback form. I request all the participants to please fill them up and submit it so you can obtain your e-certificates. And having said that, it brings us to the end of this webinar session. We have the next session waiting up for our guests from 12 p.m. to 12:45 p.m. on the topic Breaking the Fourth Wall, the Art of Spatial Storytelling by Kamini Rao. Stay tuned for some helpful insights from the young experienced minds. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monapriya and